Let me ask a question.
Okay.
And it's something which we discussed a little bit last night. A lot of those EIS and SEIS schemes really do work. I mean, I have friends in Britain who are quite well-known film producers, and every time they develop a movie, every time they go the EIS or the SEIS route. And these include films that you've heard of. They're not the smallest indie things. These are things which get distribution in the States, Ireland, Britain, etc. But how would you propose that as an Irish citizen, they actually access these? What's the vehicle, what's the instrument that you would use in order to get some of those kind of benefits?
Wealthy people that live in the UK or are domiciled in the UK. So, for example, people who live in Northern Ireland would be an asset to liaise with and to find a partnership in a production. There are a number of ways to tick the boxes when it comes to enterprise investment scheme and seed enterprise investment scheme, and you can use it for a slate. So imagine if you've got a production company that's in Northern Ireland that's got 8 pictures. You're mitigating the risk because you're moving the risk over a number of different film projects. That actually is a way to kind of get somebody more excited in the UK about partnering with you. So ultimately, it's just people who have a certain need for a tax relief.
Okay. Have any of you actually made an indie film? Anybody here? Anyone in the process of actually making one? Yeah, funded by third parties?
Possibly.
Family and friends? Rich folk you know?
It's that there are things in place.
Yeah.
No, there's finance kind of proposed, but I'm making the film here in Ireland anyway.
Okay. And have you found that there are any sort of systemic things that you've learned or places that you've gone to which others might profitably follow?
Well, obviously there's the crowdfunding, source funding route, which we had Lizzie Gillett talking yesterday about that on Age of Stupid. That's definitely one way to go. But I think what you were saying about obviously having a track record is the main thing. So I've worked in television for 20, 30 years, so I've got a track record, so it's a little bit easier for me. But I have just moved back into the UK after being here for 12 years. So the SEIS is new to me because I'm used to the Irish funding model of Irish Film Board, BAI, Section 481, and going down that route. So the difficulty, I think, for people here in Ireland is the limited outputs, and I do wish that we actually looked abroad more, that we looked at the American market. And what I was going to ask actually is, will this work for television?
Absolutely. In fact, I've had a number of conversations about how television can actually utilize a model very similar to independent filmmaking, where you bring all the money to make a television show, and then you own the IP, and that actually is a much more attractive model when it comes to distribution, because then you actually can have a brand that can have day and date online, day and date in theater, day and date on your telephone, on your iPad. You know, there's just so many other avenues, video on demand, DVD release. All of these things are avenues for return on investment, but if you're raising independent investment and you're not giving away a percentage or a share to an investor or a channel or a theatrical partner, then you're going to be in a much better position to actually recoup your money so that there's not prints and advertising, P&A, on top of your production finance.
And for many filmmakers, I know when they're starting out, this is where mammon and creativity clash. So that the friend I mentioned, who's a very, very well-known producer, she realizes that many of her development angels, and they're now the same people, you know, she's in her 25th film or whatever by now, so they're often the same people, so they know the score. They don't really care what the movie is. This is the sad thing, because if you're making your money back the day the film goes into production, you're a line item on the budget, then you get the tax relief, as Debbie said. You often also get a bit of a sweetener. You know, for them, it's a different kind of investment. They've got a diversified portfolio themselves. But the truth is, EIS is enterprise investment scheme. You could use this if you're setting up a shoe company. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a movie. It's just that the film industry took advantage of this. But you can be terribly creative. I mean, I know how she gets a lot of her money in, and it's quite interesting because you are creative types. If she's got a film with, for the sake of argument, Ralph Fiennes has expressed an interest. Okay, we're being a bit ambitious. but a true thing, she'll arrange a lunch, a kick-off lunch. And she knows that her investors who are placing money all over the markets and doing all sorts of stuff, which is a bit boring and dry, although it's nice and lucrative. Yeah, people, we are silly. Stars do have some attraction. So to have them, their wives, their kids get to meet Ralph Fiennes, that's a big deal. And she does that mercilessly, and it works. Because I call it the 19th hole, because the kind of people who make these investments, they play golf, and they brag, and they show off. So who's going to brag about their latest pension scheme investment? Nobody. But to say, hey, I put some money in a movie, a lot of people think it's risky. Of course they do. But put some money in a movie, and now I'm best buddies with Ralph Fiennes, and the wife loves me. I'm being glib, but it's true that this is one of the ways that you make the kind of noise that Debbie's talking about.
I'm doing a film called Love in Vain. Do you know Robert Johnson, the jazz guitarist, right? So we got a letter of intent. This is about 3 years ago when letters of intent were kind of the thing to get. We got a letter of intent from Johnny Depp. We got a letter of intent from Sean Puffy Combs. We got a letter of intent from all these different, people, right? Bob Dylan to play one of the roles, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger to do the soundtrack, because Love in Vain was the first, album that went to #1 for the Rolling Stones. And by the way, it is one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's a book, and the book is written as a script. And if that's something that you've never seen before, I highly recommend that you check that out. But the cool thing about having a great script is that not only will cast get on board, but someone like a Quincy Jones will do the music. And people who are fascinated by a story like Robert Johnson, who died at the age of 27, but made songs like Sweet Home Chicago, imagine how many remakes you can do of Sweet Home Chicago. So there's all kinds of ancillary streams of revenue that the investor is going to actually participate in. So those are all avenues for Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, and the film is being made in Louisiana.
So in summary, those of you who are setting out on your film career now, make your films in Louisiana, get Johnny Depp and Ralph Fiennes, and become tax accountants, and the rest will just flow. Thank you very much, Debbie. Have a good flight back.